All right, good morning. This is my audience of 5 people for my persuasive speech today. Let's see. All right. Yeah, this is good enough. All right, good morning. My name is Katlynn Murphy. Today is Friday, November 7th. This is my persuasive speech submission on why students should study abroad. Okay, so has anyone here been curious as to what it would be like to travel outside of the United States? Yeah, absolutely. Or even learn a new culture or language. Absolutely. According to a community college review essay by Yi Zhang, researchers have indicated that living and learning in other countries and cultures helps students gain global capabilities and cross-cultural sensitivities. Drawing on case studies, students who spent 3 to 12 months in foreign countries during their college years became more interested in international affairs, developed a global perspective, and increased their cross-cultural understanding. Within the same essay, Zhang addresses that even though students have considerable interest for education abroad, the ratio of community colleges that participate in such programs is actually relatively low. Funding is the most frequent challenge posed to the growth of these programs, and considering the local emphasis of community college settings, education abroad is usually seen to be a luxury and is also usually seen as a luxury that will not better prepare students for transfer to four-year universities or helping them enter the local workforce. In addition to institutional constraints, time and money are two major hurdles that students have to overcome in seeking education abroad opportunities. Many students who choose not to study abroad do not do so because they are indifferent to participation, but because they doubt whether the overseas experience will benefit their majors or their future careers, as well as the increasing fees and costs of education abroad may have a stronger negative influence on community college students, many of whom are economically challenged. I'm here today to specifically explain why taking a step beyond by independently studying abroad full-time should matter to your college career choice, how you could benefit, and the necessary steps and precautions to consider before and during your time in a different country. So, cost of studying in the United States is incredibly expensive and can take years to pay off federal and private loans. A peer-reviewed study published this past May by the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities revealed a collaborative insight into how severe tuition costs have become since the hit of the recession in 2007-2009. Points to consider that affect us directly as South Carolina citizens are the decrease in per-student state funding and the increase of tuition sticker price, and how the funding cuts have shifted the costs to students. Per-student funding in South Carolina is down by more than 40% since the start of the recession. Since the 2007-08 school year, average tuition of public four-year institutions, adjusted for inflation, has increased by 18.4% in South Carolina and even higher in surrounding states. Since 1973, the average inflation-adjusted public college tuition has more than tripled, but the median household income has only increased by 0.5%. Some graphs to give this for a visual. This is where South Carolina falls as far as state funding state funding for higher education, below recession levels. I'm pretty sure this is the per student. Moving on. Oh, yeah, so this is just the general increase, average South Carolina. We're not doing too bad, but if you were looking to transfer to like surrounding states, Georgia is really high, about like $3,000 more than it was before the recession. Alabama being right up there as well. Virginia and Florida, it's not looking too hot. All right, so the tuition growth compared to the median income compared to that 1973 figure, this is where the income line is. This is rise of tuition, and you can notice that the income of the top 1% of families has been able to follow the rise of tuition expenses fairly well. It shouldn't be a surprise considering that over the past 40 years, the incomes of the top 1% of families has climbed 186%. Compared to that 5.5%, that's pretty painful. So this trend not only reflects the practicality of attending college, but with the socio-economic elite have also become increasingly dominant within the American political system. According to the American government textbook, We the People, education level is the single most important factor in predicting whether an individual will vote or engage in political participation, and income is an important factor when it comes to people making campaign contributions. Those with money, time, education, and capacity to participate effectively in the political system are more likely to do so. So, many countries have free or minor tuition fees compared to the cost of attending an American university. If you're on social media, I'm sure some of you may have come across friends who have posted these articles about Germany that recently abolished all of their tuition fees, which is including international students too. It's they chose this to emphasize exercising true human rights. And if you haven't seen them, I strongly encourage that you look into them. This news is actually what inspired me to speak about studying abroad today. And in that research, I discovered that many countries have been offering free to low-cost tuitions to international students. So bachelor's, master's, and PhD program classes are being offered in English, and there are even opportunities to earn scholarships to help pay your expenses, depending on the region and the schools that you look into. So this is an exciting idea. I started college really late in the game, so at my age of 24, I'm starting to worry about how I'm going to manage my future. Fresh out of high school, age 17, 18, the typical college-bound youth starts their debt game fairly early, projecting them to graduate and start paying back that debt by the time they're about 22 or so, rough guess. Back to quoting the Center on Budget report, collectively across all institutional sectors, students held $1.8 trillion in debt. That's eclipsing both car loans and credit card debt. Isn't that crazy? That is so crazy. It's a scary figure. I cannot possibly imagine being able to finish college and find a job comfortable enough to not only pay back that debt, but also live comfortably, put money away for future investments, and still have enough freedom to travel and enjoy myself. These ideas seem dreamy because they just aren't practical anymore. It's a shame to me how so many of us have to settle on less than ideal situations because of income and the debt game involved with our institutions. Now, as you can imagine, planning to reside in a whole other country will take a lot of consideration. So just because the tuition will be more affordable does not mean that you don't have to properly plan your budget. You have to consider your travel expenses, your living expenses, recreational budget if you plan on traveling while you're abroad, knowing the currency that you're going to be using, knowing how you're going to bank. Are you going to be using traveler's checks? Are you going to open up a bank account overseas? And where your money is coming from. Like if you take out a loan, scholarships, etc., all those things to consider. Let's see. Oh, and also, as far as your personal goes, keep track of your deadlines. It's just like applying to a college here in the States. There will be many phone calls and arrangements to make to ensure you get accepted. And following that, you have to make sure that you obtain your resident permit or student visa through the appropriate embassy. You can do that either over here in the United States or when you go over to the country. You don't have to do that before, just promptly. Research the prerequisites, whether you need some college education prior, such as an academic letters of recommendation, or other requirements. Possess proof of funding for your travels. And make sure you have a valid passport, of course. Even if your classes are taught in English, choose to adopt the local language. This will help lower the cultural barriers and further enrich your experience. Know the laws and customs and respect them. Depending on the region and a severe enough of the situation, you can be retained in jail until the local authorities see it fit to release you. Be as cautious as you would be in the United States. Use common sense and be wary of strangers. Do your research and be aware of any dangerous regions where you might be at risk as an American. Know your rights. So I know all this information might be a lot of non-traditional perceptions taken. Homesickness will happen, and coming from an economically struggling situation, these theories might be a little too far out of reach. But honestly, if our current generation is already expected to take on debt equivalent to a home mortgage in order to have a college education, then I for one would much rather take out a loan to help me experience the world and gain a quality education while at the same time paying less for that equivalent degree so that my future can look a bit brighter with more opportunities to make a difference. So life is too short to not live it, and the world's too large to waste time not seeing it. So that's my 2 cents. I hope to see some of you across the pond, as they say. Merci.